Hello, everyone. You guys hear me okay? I like to do this a little early in case there's technical glitches. Someone tell me in the chat if you can hear me. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. Wait a couple minutes before we get into the silliness. How's everybody doing? You guys type in on the chat where you're at, where you're hailing in from right now. It's fun to see that around the world. Oh, hi, Kate. Hello, Kate. Oh boy, you guys are loading it up. All right, Sydney in the house. I'll be in Sydney next year. Nice. So fun. Thank you. Thank you so much. So sweet of you. Penny asked if I'm on Wi-Fi. No, I'm tethered to my phone. Tethered to my phone. But I did a podcast interview the other day and it worked very well, so I figured it would be okay for this. Hello, New Orleans. Nolans. All right. It's 3 p.m. in Opua, New Zealand. AOTEAROA. Hello to everyone. I made it to New Zealand. It is wild to have made it that far. I'm wearing my slutty Fiji shirt. I like this shirt a lot. Okay, so where to begin? Let's first, you'll see a little blue bar at the top of the chat. It says ask questions here. Throughout the live stream, I'll be popping over into a separate window that lists any questions that are asked. And then I'll find questions that make sense, that are on topic for what we're kind of talking about. And I'll click that. It'll pop up at the top, and then we'll talk about that. This is a new feature they've just introduced. It's a little clunky. Me and Sarah kind of test drove it earlier. It's a little weird, but we're going to try it out today. That'll kind of help keep the questions, because so many times the feed goes so fast and I'm talking, it's hard to kind of, keep everything in order. So, what else? Let's see. I'm in New Zealand. Me and sweet Triteia have sailed 8,636 nautical miles since untying at the guest slip at Chase Park in Marina del Rey, August of 2021. Just this year, we've sailed 6,109 nautical miles since leaving Oahu. And we have visited 43 anchorages this year alone, which is kind of phenomenal. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. So it has been a busy year. As with all channels, the episodes are obviously time delayed for a variety of reasons. So I think right now we're in French Polynesia. Yeah, like the next episode is me exploring Huahine or Wahine. I'm not sure. There's different ways different people pronounce it in French Polynesia. So that's where we're caught up to on the episodes. There's tons and tons of episodes still to come. Triteia, Taha, Bora Bora. The passage film to American Samoa is edited and done, and it's packed full of drama. And then there'll be a little episode for American Samoa. I didn't film much there. And then the sail to Fiji, and then a ton in Fiji. And then the passage film to New Zealand. Passage to New Zealand was like one of the most challenging passages I've ever had in my life. And I apologize if you guys are asking me stuff in the chat. I'm just talking right now. So I'm probably going to miss whatever. Thanks so much for everybody that's kicking in. Wow. I really appreciate all of that. So yeah, a lot of miles covered this season. Fiji was out of this world. French Polynesia was paradise. Let me see. I think I wrote it down. I don't know if I wrote it down. Let me see. I did one. So far, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 solo ocean passages. And Triteia has done very well. The current sort of situation is there's no engine in Triteia at the moment. And anyone who follows me on Instagram knows all this stuff because I post everything in real time on Instagram. But the engine started failing in Fiji, and I sailed here. It got me out past. I got it started in Fiji to get me out past the reefs, but I sailed here with no engine and sailed all the way up to within a 1 mile of the quarantine dock here at Opua in Bay of Islands, New Zealand. And right as a massive storm was arriving, I couldn't short tack up the channel. The tide was against me. The winds were like 25 knots and then nothing. So it was impossible for me to short tack up. I anchored and was I getting the dinghy in the water to put it on the hip to try to get to the Q dock. And a good Samaritan pulled up in a really cool little green powerboat, motorboat thing. And he was like, "Hey, you want to tow? I ain't got to be at the slip for an hour." I was like, "Absolutely." So he towed me up to the Q dock. And then shortly after that, the worst of the storm hit. And we saw 46 knots of wind here in the protected harbor. And in kind of the thick of that, after I got cleared in, I'm at Bay of Islands Marina right now. 2 of the people from Bay of Islands Marina, they got 2 dinghies and like towed me off the dock and in those crazy winds. It was like very wild, but safely into a slip. And I pulled the engine out yesterday. But I broke down the head and took it to the mechanic a couple days before. Yesterday, I went ahead and pulled the block, got it out, and got it to them. And tomorrow morning, I'm leaving the slip, even with no engine, and going out to anchor because I can't afford to stay here. It's like $37 a day because they don't have a slip. They only have a 14-meter slip. My boat's 9 meters because everything's sold out because most boats come here after the cruising season. So I'm going to just go anchor. And while J&B Marine, who those dudes are awesome, while they get my engine rebuilt and get me going. Let me peek at this chat for a moment. Oh, there is a lot happening here. Again, if you just signed in, there's a little thing at the top. This is Ask Questions Here. If you have like questions you have about my season, that's mostly what I'm going to be talking about. Or even general questions. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, but you can enter those questions in the top. It puts it in a separate field that I can go look at and I can answer them later on. So let's see here. Oh boy. So sailing Cyclops after I fixed my insurance problem. I cannot find anyone that will. You need $5 million worth of coverage in Kiwi dollars to stay in a marina. The marina hasn't asked me for my insurance again, so I didn't bring it up. And like I said, I'm leaving tomorrow, but I still want to find someone so that I can, if I want to stay in marinas while I'm in New Zealand, I can. But I've contacted 5 places and everyone said no, either because my boat's too old, not worth them enough money, or because I'm an American flag vessel. I have Progressive Insurance, my main coverage, but they won't go that high. So I got to sort that out. It's the same situation in Australia. So it'd be cool if I could find a plan that covered here and Australia so that I don't have to do it again when I get to Australia. But it'll sort itself out. Sarah, someone's asking about Patreons. Can you post the link to that? Yeah, I do have Patreon, and Sarah will be posting links when people ask questions. Sarah's on my shore team and my best friend on the planet, and helps me out a lot. And Sarah will be here on New Year's Eve. She's flying in for about 2 weeks, and we're going to see like as much as we can I don't know what's going to be happening with the boat. Even if there's no engine, if the engine's not broken, we're still going to sail around the Bay of Islands. And there's so many protected anchorages here. So what else? Let me think. So yeah, covered all the distances. French Polynesia was fantastic, really amazing. I spent 2 months there. My visa was for 3 months. I wish I could have stayed 3 months, but I got delayed leaving Hawaii because there was a 4-month wait period on me hauling out. So I wasn't able to haul out until May to repair my rudder. So I wish I could have spent 3 months, but I keep just saying you can't see everything. So I had a fantastic time in French Polynesia. And then Fiji. Oh, Fiji. You could spend 2 seasons in Fiji and not see it all. Like that place is out of this world. And a lot of people were like, why aren't you staying like a month at each place? You have very limited window with the cyclone season. Even as it was, I left Fiji to sail here. But the Kiwis I met were like, oh, we've gone as late as like mid-December. And I trust local knowledge over anything else. So what else? Yeah, Fiji, fantastic. And now here I am in New Zealand. The plan is to get the engine fixed and back in and get her running and explore as much of the North Island as I can. And if I trust the engine with it rebuilt, or if I have to replace it, then if I trust it, I'm going to try to get down to the South Island and hit Fiordland and Stewart Island and Marlborough Sounds and everything. So I would like to do like a figure 8 circumnavigation of both islands, but I have to trust this engine before I would go down there. So that's all to be determined. But there's plenty to see on the North Island. This is like, it seems like it's mecca of cruising, because I can't believe I got this gorgeous cruising guide, and I made really good friends with this Kiwi named Keith. We actually met in French Polynesia and then ran into each other in Fiji and hung out there a lot. And then I've been chilling with him here. And he sat down with me and some other cruisers I met, and we went through the charts, and he like marked off tons of anchorages. And you could sail on New Zealand for years and years and years and never see all the anchorages. Like, he grew up here, and he was like, I haven't been to half the anchorages. So it's fantastic. Someone's saying hello from Fiji. Awesome. Hello from Fiji. Lynn T is saying hi from New Mexico. Hello from the 505. Let me see what else is being said over here. Let me see. So yeah, that's my plan for New Zealand. I'll be in New Zealand until May. First week of May, I plan on leaving as soon as there's a weather window. Anytime after May 1st, I plan on sailing to Australia, and I'll sail direct to Sydney from the North Cape. I'll probably clear out here at Opua. And I'm tempted to sail down to Tasmania, but that's going to add 1,000 miles to my year. So I probably won't. I'll probably save that for when I come back around this way at some point. But get to Australia, and I'm going to cruise up the East Coast, and I want to be at Darwin around September to make passage to Indonesia, and then be in Southeast Asia until the first of the year, and then cross the Indian Ocean from there. So that's what next year looks like. Let's see what's happening over here. Thanks everybody for joining on the chat. This is fun. How many people we got on right now? 200 people? 207. That's awesome. What else? Carlos, what up? Carlos Archuleta is in the chat, one of my oldest friends, who I love very dearly. So let me check. I'm going to check over this little questions box over here and see if there's anything. Oh, there's a lot of questions. Uh-oh. All right, let me see here. Let me see. Oh, there it is. I'm overwhelmed by that at the moment. Let me see here. Okay, here I'll do this one because it ties into we're testing out this like Q&A feature, which is a little clunky. How big were the waves encountered so far? So this season, I think the biggest waves I saw this season were probably 4 meters. So, 12 foot, nothing crazy. I mean, that's big for a little boat. I mean, I have a foot and a half of freeboard. So I thought the freeboard on my boat was real sexy until I got into big seas. And I was like, I did have on this passage to New Zealand, it was like really challenging passage because I think I had 4 days of calms and I think I had 3 days of calms and like 4 days of spinnaker sailing, very light winds, and then the rest was heavy weather. And one of the systems, I had my starboard side solar panel down and lashed, and a wave broke so hard over the boat, it filled the cockpit to overflowing, and it hit the back of the solar panel and exploded it. So it bent it like a boomerang and just shattered the plate glass and everything. And that was shocking. I never thought about them getting damaged from the back. I always put them down on the lee side because I was worried about the waves hitting them from the bottom. I never imagined them getting destroyed from the back. So I think my solution to that is I'm going to have stainless steel frames made that they bolt onto, but I have to get a replacement solar panel this summer here in New Zealand. And I think a stainless steel frame would have solved that whole scenario. Wasn't a fault of the solar panels at all. It's like just waves are super gnarly. So, but even with it totally shattered, she's still putting out like 50 watts, which is fantastic. So that was shocking. What else happened? Let's think about breakages for this season. Well, the engine is being rebuilt, as I mentioned. That broke. I had like a scary situation sailing from Bora Bora to Pongo Pongo, American Samoa, where I think that the little lever wasn't down on my hatch, and we got pooped. So the wave came over, filled the cockpit, but it washed open that cockpit locker and filled it with the wave, and it instantly filled the boat. So it was like my floorboards were floating, and my bilge is like 3 feet deep, so it's like a meter deep, and it was full like that, and it was very alarming. You'll see all of that. I got footage of all that on the American Samoa film that's coming out next year. That was alarming, but was okay. I'm installing a much bigger high volume electric pump while I'm here in New Zealand. And I don't think I had any other real gear issues this season, other than my phone has been crapping out for a minute. The charging port is shot because of all the salt water. I think that's it. I had a pretty good season as far as like breakages go. Let me see what's happening over here. Let me see. Oh my gosh, Uncle Chuck is on, and Krista is the Kapuna on the Big Island. Awesome. Let me check my thing here. Questions. Let's see here. This one's interesting. I'm not sure how I'll answer it. That's one of the reasons I'm selecting it. So the question is, you can see it in the top. Whoops, sorry about that. You can question is, in previous live stream, you said you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. What do you find uncomfortable? What I find uncomfortable is being in a small boat especially in like following seas where the seas are at least three or 4 meters for days on end. When they're charging and the boat is just driving like this endlessly and it's just doing this like gunnel to gunnel, and it's fine as long as you're sitting down or laying down. But when you get up to cook, that's when it's a nightmare. You just try to go to the bathroom. It's like just like takes all of your strength to do anything in those kind of conditions. So, and it'll just get so, the motion of the boat is just so brutal that you really just lay still the whole time and read, or I didn't get seasick once since I left Hawaii. I didn't get seasick at all, which is good. I think the first couple days out of Hawaii, I had a hard time, but I never threw up. I felt like crap, but I haven't had any seasickness since then. So there's that. Someone just asked down below, not in the questions. They said, how much does it cost per day to run the boat? That's not really how things work on boats. There's not like a daily sort of thing, but I'm actually going to do Zoom classes at the first of the year to try to help me pay for the engine repair and stuff. So I think so far, I think I'm going to try to do 4 Zoom classes, and it'll probably be like $35 a ticket, or probably $25 a ticket for the patrons. And it's going to be a couple of different things. Like one will be like, introduction to cruising, and talking about how you can go from like your day job and like to like cruising full time, ways that you could go about it. And in that class, I'm going to break down all of my expenses, what I make, lay it all on the table, and tell you how I go about it. And then I'll talk about other things, in that Zoom class. But that's something I'm still working out. I've written the syllabus for that one, but I kind of want to have 4 worked out. And I might be putting out a poll asking people what classes they would like to see. And we'll see how they go. If they go well, then I'll probably do more. But that's something I'm going to be addressing in a Zoom class sometime in the next year. What else? What else? Veronica's saying, hit the like button. Yeah, hit the like button. That's awesome. I'll check my little questions bar over here and see if there's more questions. Not crazy about this question. It's hard to keep track of the questions in the live chat because it goes so fast. But this thing's a little clunky. How do you? Here's one. We'll do this one because people ask this one all the time. So the question is, how do you deal with being alone at sea? And I think I talked about this. I just did a podcast interview on, it's called A Fighter Story. Sarah, could you post a link to that podcast in the chat? And he asked me that about loneliness as well. It's funny. when I'm at sea, like I prefer to do sea passages alone because Triteia is so small. There's just not much room, and I love being on passage. It's fantastic. And if there was like, and I've said this many times, but if there was somebody else on board who was like complaining about how miserable it was, that would make my life hell. Like I'm fine, in whatever conditions. And but if I had to worry about someone else's comfort or hear them complaining, it would be so much worse. So as far as ocean crossings go, I don't see myself ever taking crew for ocean crossings. Unless I've just fell madly in love with someone and then, they came on and sailed with me, but that is not a realistic scenario. So that being said, I do get lonely, especially in port and especially exploring really gorgeous places. And I try to work it out so that, friends meet me in different places so that we can explore together. Like Sarah, who's like my best friend on the planet, she's coming here for 2 weeks and we're going to explore. And she visited me several times in Hawaii. My baby brother, Kobe Thorpe, is going to meet me um, in places to go diving and stuff. And Kimberly Wood was gonna meet me in Fiji for like a couple weeks, but it didn't work out with her work schedule because she's working for National Geographic and Lindblad expeditions. And so she was on a job and it was just too tight for her to get there and safely get back to her job. So that's kind of like the dream scenario for me is to have friends meet me in different spots and explore, and then I do all the ocean passages alone. Um, so I for sure in Fiji, I got lonely for sure in Fiji, and I was also exhausted. I was like so tired from going so hard all season that I kind of hit a wall. I hit a wall in the Yasawa group in Fiji, and I was just like, I'm just tired. Very tired pushing every single day, and I saw tons of unbelievable stuff, and I wouldn't take any of it back. But for sure, Fiji, I was like, and I'm kind of glad here. It's nice because it's been very rainy here in New Zealand, and with the engine out and everything, I'm forced to just like chill out. Well, I'm not really chilling out. I pulled the engine and used a come along to winch it out in the cockpit here at the dock. So it's not like I've been chilling out, but my version of chilling out. Yeah, it's been kind of nice. Um, Someone said get a dog. That's totally unrealistic for going to different countries. I would not do that. So what's happening here? Someone asked if I've seen any UFOs. No, I have not. I've seen unidentified floating objects, if that's what you're asking. Um, oh, Carlos said he'll meet me. Yeah, Carlos, you gotta meet me. The problem is it's so damn expensive. Like, especially now, the further away I get from my people, most of my people are in LA. So the further away I get, it's very expensive to fly, especially right now. And also, people have jobs. It's like, I'm like, hey, come hang out with me. I'm like, everybody's like, yeah, that would be nice. Um, what else? What else? Someone asked, how do I overcome seasickness? It's mostly time on the water. It's like the more you're at sea, the easier it gets for, if I feel weird, if my eyeballs feel off, I take half a Dramamine and I'm fine. Um, Let me check the question zone over here. All right. I like this question from Lynn. I'm not sure how to. Says you've made some very drastic and awesome changes in your life from Hobbs. That's where I grew up, Hobbs, New Mexico, to sailing the world, and everything in between. How do you top what you're currently doing? Big, all-encompassing question. I don't know that it's like a topping it. You know what I mean? Where did my question go there? I don't know that it's like topping what I'm gonna do, because this is kind of like this is what I plan to be my life for this foreseeable future. So this circumnavigation, I expect to be back in LA 2025, 2026. I'm just gonna push through, and I'll kind of, when I get to Cape Town, I'll decide if I'm gonna go the smart, easy route through the canal, or if I'm gonna double the horn. I'm doing the horn one way or another. I just don't know from which direction. I'll probably do the canal on this trip and then do Cape Horn on the second circumnavigation. But this circumnavigation, I plan on sailing until 2025, 2026, get to LA, and spend about a year writing the book of this circumnavigation. I have another book that's like half written that I want to finish first about the Hawaii situation. And I'll spend about a year in LA writing, and then I'll leave and slowly crawl around the world with no end in sight. And hopefully just be like, you know, sharing my life. If YouTube's still happening for me, then I'll do it on YouTube. Otherwise, I'll be writing books and magazine articles. I have a new magazine article coming out in Good Old Boat. That'll be out next month. The copies are already out to the subscribers and to the writers, but I think it's on the newsstands in January. So that is coming out, and it's about me finding Triteia, about me falling in love with sailing, finding Triteia, and what I did to get going, and like kind of the beginning of this dream. So that's what that whole article is about. 2-page article, photos and everything. And that's goodoldboatmagazine.com or goodoldboat.com, I think. And so, yeah, I don't know that there's like a topping it, you know? I've lived so many lives at this point that this is just kind of the chapter on this part of my life. You know what I mean? I don't see myself ever not being on a boat sailing to remote places. It's an amazing experience, and as long as I can pull it off, then that's what I'll be doing. Somebody asked where I'll get my 100,000 subscriber plaque shipped to. My baby brother Colby's house is my permanent address in Southern California, so he'll have it on his wall or something. We're getting there, like 88.5 right now, so hopefully spring of next year we'll hit the 100,000 mark. Be stoked. What else? Let me see. Let's check our little questions tab. It's hard because people are firing questions in both spots, but I'm going to try to stick with this questions tab business and stick to the program. Oh, I like this question a lot, actually. This is a very good question. Has this made you more social from the experience? That's a rad question. And I would say absolutely. And the one thing that's interesting is that I'm pretty naturally pretty shy, and I'm for sure an introvert. So before this, I just kind of like had interactions with only my close people or people that I worked with because I had to. And I really tried to like limit my exposure just because it was like easier for me to exist that way. And but it's funny cuz now I'm for sure I'm always alone. So and I've made more friends since I got to New Zealand than I did all season. The only friend I made this season sailing, like that I would, I met a lot of nice people, but someone who I considered like a good friend who, will be my friend forever is this guy Keith um, on SV Terere, and he's a Kiwi. He came up to me, dinghied up to Triteia in Huahine after we'd ridden out like a week's worth of storms under anchor, and introduced himself, and we visited there. And then he sailed in and anchored near me at Aqua Island in Fiji, and came over, and I went and hung out with him and his guests. He has I think it's a 40 foot Dufour, might be a 42 foot, but it's something around that size. And he sails all over. He spent the whole season working his way through the South Pacific and had friends and family come meet him in different spots. So I ran into him again in Fiji, and then we hung out that whole last part while I was in Fiji. And then he got here like 2 weeks before me to Opua, and we've been hanging out here the whole time. And he introduced me to a bunch of other cruisers that he had met this season. And so since then, I became friends with Ian and Laura, and I've been spending a lot of time with them. English couple, they're cruising on a beautiful oyster, and um, Dale and Katrina, they have like a very gigantic catamaran. They're also English, and I've been spending time with them. So I've made a lot of friends here, and I socialize with them. And that's a funny thing. Asking about if it's made me more social, is that kind of now if someone invites me to do something that's like not going to get me thrown in jail or doesn't involve like people that are blackout drunk, I'll say yes. Like Keith, Keith came up right after I got in. Keith came up. He's like, "Hey, we're going to see these fancy toilets. You want to go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go see fancy toilets." And it's these like gorgeous, ornate, wild. This German artist that lived here on the North Island and made these famous fancy tile. Almost looks like Gaudi toilets, but I'm like, sure, I'll go see toilets. So and then he invited me to go ride on a little train, but we didn't end up doing that. We missed it or whatever because he was sitting down showing us stuff on charts. So I'm definitely more apt to being like, yeah, let's do it. See wild stuff. So yeah, I think hopefully that answered the question. um let's see here. Let me see. I might go back to my questions thing here. I'm not sure I'll use this question thing in the future. It's so hard either way. Let's see. Mm, let me see here. Oh, this is a question that people probably wonder about. Any PTSD from the rudder failure when making ocean passages? Not at all, because I know how to steer without a rudder. Um, let's see here. Um, Somebody just asked, any nonstop circumnavigations planned? No, I don't. Maybe after I'd done 2 circumnavigations, I would do one of those races, but I see no point in sailing around the world and missing everything. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's absurd. Let's see. Here's one I'll answer because I think only a few people will be interested in this. But how do you break into writing for publications? You submit endless amounts of articles. I think I've submitted 17 articles to all different publications, and I have 4 lined up for publication. So it's just, my mom always said they can't say yes if you don't ask. So you just got to do it and not get sad, and it's very slow. My article that's coming out in Good Old Bolt, I submitted to them in April. So I actually had to update some of it and it's just now being printed almost a year later. And then I have an article about my time in Kaneohe Bay that's being published in Cruising World, and I don't even know, it might be this summer when that comes out. And then Cruising World has another article of mine they have on hold that they might publish about demystifying the myth of French Polynesia being hard for cruisers. Because before I went to French Polynesia, I heard all these horror stories, which is bullshit. And so I wrote an article laying it all out, what it's really like. It's fantastic. The people are amazing. It is incredible there. And everything I'd read was total bullshit. So I wrote an article, and they have that on hold. We'll see if that ends up getting published with them or with someone else. But as far as that goes, if you're a writer, it's just pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch. And don't get sad. Just keep pitching. Let me see if there's something else on here. Here's this one's good. I think this one's valid for people that are interested in cruising. What's your health insurance situation? Is there global health insurance, or do you just wing it? A lot of countries you have to have health insurance. So like French Polynesia, you have to have health insurance. I think Fiji, you have to have health insurance. So I use DAN health insurance, so the Divers Assisted Network. They have a really affordable, like I don't have their top plan, but I have one that's really good, and it covers a lot. And I'm super healthy person. I have not been to a doctor since I got a physical before I left LA, just to make sure. But other than that, I haven't been sick since 2015, other than when a fan gave me COVID in Hawaii days before I was supposed to leave. And that's the only, so I'm very healthy, but you have to have health insurance to get into many countries. And so that's what I use is DAN insurance, which you can Google search that. They're pretty awesome. They also will, if you have a diving accident, they'll fly you out to a chamber and stuff. So they're pretty cool. Let me see. Oh, this is a fun one, but also difficult. Let me see. It says favorite place last year, but I'm thinking you mean this year, this season, because this when I went the most places was this year. Off the top of my head, I'd have to say Fiji. If I was choosing different spots, so like in French Polynesia, Raiatea probably, because I visited Tapu Tapu Tea, which is the largest sacred religious site in all of Polynesia. It was the center of the Polynesian Triangle. So I spent a whole morning there by myself. No one else was there. And that was pretty amazing. And like, Captain Cook visited that site and stuff. And then I went on a river adventure on the dinghy, where I took the dinghy up a river adventure at Roa Bay, just a couple spots down from there on Raiatea. So when I think about French Polynesia, that comes up. The most beautiful spot I went all season was Moorea. Hands down, no questions asked. Moorea is bonkers. Like, the landscape is so beautiful. It is crazy. I only got to spend like just over a day there because I had to run from storms. But it is just like stunningly beautiful. I could have easily spent a couple weeks there. But it's funny, the snorkeling, at least where I went, was not that amazing there. The best snorkeling I had all season was, as far as fish life and sharks go, was the aquarium in Rangiroa in the Tumotu. That was out of this world. It's called the aquarium, and it is just like being in a very dense aquarium. But then also swimming with the manta rays and tiki how was a beautiful and spiritual experience. And then, but the most insane coral I've ever seen anywhere was on Aqua Island in Fiji in the Yasawa group. It was out of this world, like soft coral, just stunning colors. And it was fascinating too, because the water temperature was so high in the shallows that it was uncomfortable to even be in the shallows, but you could see where the coral dies because of the water temperature. And then you'll see it crazy thriving. And I spoke with a marine biologist that they do a lot of coral restoration in Fiji. And he said something really interesting. He said when they have a bleaching event, they will swim over the bleach zones over and over again. And any coral that's alive, they extract because it's super tough. And then they put it in more favorable waters, propagate it, and then they replant it in the zones that had bleached. So it's almost like breeding like a super coral. So I thought that was pretty neat to learn. Let's see. Check out the chat here. Somebody said, love the shirt. Where'd you get this one? This is my slutty Fiji shirt. Fiji, they have pretty wild shirts. And I looked in so many shops. And this one was and it was one of a kind. I didn't see any. It was on a rack that was all just wacky stuff. But yeah, I like this shirt. Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate the donation there, Donald. Someone keeps asking about inflatables. I don't even know the name of my inflatable. It's like Inmar or something. I mean, I would beat the hell out of it, and it's still, I have to pump it up every couple days, but that's because I need to find the hole. But I don't have any. I think Highfields are very good dinghies, but I don't have one. But yeah. What else? Let me check this out. Somebody said no audio in the UK. I can't do anything about it. If there's no audio, I apologize. Can you guys hear me? Okay, Sarah says she can hear me, so that's the best I can do. Somebody said, what do I do for security on the boat? I don't understand the question. I clip in when I go forward. Someone said, best non-technical books. Sarah, will you post the link to my favorite books? I have a list of books that I love. The one for this season that was the one that is was my jam was this one, Men Against the Sea, about Captain Bligh. I read a passage of this in a couple videos you'll see this season, I've read some passages from this book. This is one of the greatest sea voyages of all time, and it gives me ulcers reading this damn book. It's so good. Someone said, "Where am I and what time is it?" I'm in Opua, New Zealand, and it's 3:48 p.m. What culture shocks have I experienced this year? I don't know that I've experienced culture shocks. There's things that are different. Yeah, I don't know that I've experienced any culture shocks. Life is just totally different. So, like French Polynesia, like in the Tuamotus, you can't get water. You can't even buy water. Like I couldn't even buy water. So I actually met another American couple who were on a multi-hull, and I asked them because they knew some locals. I was like, "Do you know anyone I can buy water from?" Because I was getting very low. And they're like, "Oh, we have a water maker. Bring us your jerry cans," which is awesome because I don't have a water maker. So they gave me like 10 gallons of water, and I got to stay an extra week in the Tuamotus because of it. So that's that. But that's the only time. The rest of the season, I've had no problem finding water. Eggs are really hard to find in French Polynesia. Kind of everywhere, actually. American Samoa. I think. Oh no, I found eggs in American Samoa, but Fiji too. You couldn't find eggs. It was very difficult in most places. So yeah, food is kind of you got to plan ahead. Slim pickings on that stuff. Someone asked if I do any fishing when out to sea. Yeah, I fish sometimes, depending. But the thing to know about being a solo sailor on an ocean crossing is the boat motion is usually kind of chaos, especially in the trade winds. You're just doing this and you're wing and wing and you're flying. And I personally don't like to take anything I don't need. So I never needed food, but I did fish a couple times coming when I would get near islands. Like I don't mind fishing if I'm going to be able to share with other cruisers, but I feel like it'd be a waste to because whatever I catch is going to be big. So I just feel like it would be a waste. It's better for like the ocean if I leave whatever's out there to continue reproducing more fish because the seas are so overfished by commercial fishing. So, but coming in, if I knew there were going to be other cruisers that I was going to be around that I could share or locals I could share the fish with, then I would fish. But I didn't catch anything the whole season, and I would kind of throw my line out every time I was approaching landfall, and yeah. What else? Someone said that Maoris were cannibals. So are the Fijis and everyone else in South Pacific. um, thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it. Everybody's kind donations are going straight to the engine rebuild, which I got a quote. They gave me a quote, and they think it'll be around $2,000, but they have to get into the block to see because my engine doesn't have sleeves. So if they're damaged, then they'll have to bore it out and oversize the pistons. So that's going to be pricey. But if they can't, my buddy Keith, he found me a replacement 2GM20F here. I can buy for $2,500 and just put it in. But then I don't know what condition that engine's in. Is it going to do the same thing to me when I get to Australia? So I'd rather have this one rebuilt if I can manage it. Someone keeps asking about pirates. Pirates are imaginary, except for in a couple places in the world. Literally, the Suez Canal is like not good. The Philippines are sketchy currently. Like a bunch of boats have gotten robbed lately. And like Papua New Guinea, you want to stay away from there. But they're just bandits. It's just like poor people trying to feed their families. And we look like a piggy bank because we're on a yacht. So pirates are like an imaginary bad guy for the most part. If you don't put yourself in harm's way, then it's going to be fine. Sorry, I'm on troll patrol. People are talking shit in the chat right now. What else? Let's see here. Someone asked if the internet service has gotten better. It's funny. It's like I've been here. I thought the whole time that there would be really good internet here ashore, and I found like that the cruisers launch here in Opua, I wasn't able to upload any videos. I've been uploading videos tethered to my phone. The internet on my phone, even in French Polynesia, in Rangiroa, I had such good internet tethered to my phone. I uploaded a 10 gigabyte, like the passage film from Hawaii to Rangiroa. I uploaded that tethered to my phone overnight. I couldn't believe how good the internet was in French Polynesia, just the cell service. And I have like a roaming plan. So yeah, it's crazy. It's much cheaper than buying the plan there. Someone asked if I met Lynn. No, but me and Lynn Party have corresponded for many years, and her new man are on their way up to the Bay of Islands. So I will probably see her in the next 2 weeks. She messaged me the other day. Um, Someone said, "Have you seen other long distance boats smaller than you? What most boats do you see like?" Yeah, so I met Holly Martin of Wind Hippie Sailing. Um, we I happened to anchor next to her at Yasawa Island. Her and her sister were there, and we met there. And then we were both in Port Dinara at the same time with engine trouble, and we both sailed from Fiji to here with no engines. And then I was hanging out with her here until she got a replacement engine put in, and then my buddy Keith, we had dinner. Me and Holly and Keith had dinner one night, and then the next day Keith went over, showed her how to align her engine, and they worked on it all day, got her engine running, and got her going. I think she's 28 years old now, and she's on a 27-foot boat that is very minimal. She is like a full-on beast of a sailor. She is a super badass. And we were talking, but we're probably going to do like a live stream together on her channel once I get down to the Auckland area. She's down that way now, or heading down that way right now. So, but Holly's boat is 27 foot. That's the only other long distance small boat I've seen. Besides, there are these 4 Canadians that I met in Savu Savu, Fiji, that are on a 30-foot boat. They sailed from, I think, Vancouver to Hawaii, and then Hawaii to Fiji. 4 people on a 30-foot boat, and all of them were still happy, and nobody was jumping ship. So I saw them again in Port Dinara. I think they're here right now, but they plan on putting their boat up for the season, and they're going to hike the whole island. So they're total like wildcats. But most boats are very big, um, very big. I always thought Triteia was like big until I got her to French Polynesia, and I was like, I would just look in the anchorage and see the anchor light that was like half as high as everybody else. I'm like, oh, that's my boat, and that's how I would get back to the boat at night. And people are always just like baffled when they see Los Angeles on the transom. They're like, "You did not sail that here." I was like, "Yep." um, oh, someone said 4 dudes. No, it's 3 dudes and 1 girl, and everybody was happy and chill. And one of my friend Laura said she met them, and she said 2 of them are twins because they all look the same to me. They all look like Canadians, right? They look like that show Northern Extras from the Northern Exposure. So they all had beards and like beanies, and they all looked the same to me, except the female sailor. She had short cropped hair, and everybody was like stoked and happy. I was like, hell yeah, that's awesome. So let me see here. Let me see. Go back to my questions tab. Here, this is a good question that's relevant. This says, are you going to sail in the Indian Ocean or anywhere near the Middle East? I will be crossing the Indian Ocean. Unfortunately, I don't plan to go to the Middle East. I would love to see the Middle East, but I plan on sailing from Phuket to Sri Lanka if the political situation there is stable by the time I get around that way. And then from there to the Maldives, to the Seychelles, to Madagascar, or to Chagos, to Madagascar. But the main thing is I want to get to Madagascar and spend a couple months on the inside and of the Mozambique Channel and explore as much of Madagascar as possible. It looks fantastic. Someone asked, with your sailing experience, what's the largest yacht you could comfortably sail? The thing to know about sailing big boats is like you can sail a 60-foot boat by yourself if everything is like electric winches and stuff. But the question is, can you dock a 60-foot boat by yourself? Like once you're out away from land, everything's the same. I would never want a boat greater than 42 foot for if I was single-handed or short-handed sailing. I think that's the perfect size for like a solo sailor or a couple, because then you have enough room that you can have family and friends come visit you and as a comfortable accommodations and stuff. I think that's a great size boat. 42 foot is awesome. But yeah, you know, it's like you can sail kind of any size boat, but obviously when they get that big, the loads are so great, you would need electrical winches and all this stuff, but electronic winches. But can you dock it in any kind of wind? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Let's see here. The NTM Corp Sanderson, is that Chance? If that's Chance Sanderson, I love you. Let me see here. What else? If there's any Kiwis in the chat, will you blow up your favorite anchorages? You'd have to put secret ones. You can put common ones. But I have a good list from other Kiwis, but I'm so excited to cruise New Zealand. I love it here. People are so nice. The landscape is stunningly beautiful. There's a billion protected anchorages on the charts. Yeah. I could definitely see like settling down in New Zealand after I get done wandering many years from now. I love it here. Best meal I've had since being out at sea. So are you asking me the best meal at sea? Because my Thanksgiving meal was pretty good, and I baked bread for the first time at sea, and it came out perfect. It was very easy, shockingly easy. Somebody asked, any close calls with ships? I wouldn't say close calls, but I think I saw four or five ships between Fiji and New Zealand, and maybe 6 yachts. There was a lot of traffic. But you got to realize with the yachts, I think there's about 250 or 300 yachts, either foreign or New Zealand, that's bound that sail from Fiji to New Zealand this time of year every year. There's a lot of boats that make the passage. So I did have an Australian warship come within a couple miles of me. That was neat. My brother had contacted me and been like, there's a tugboat that's kind of on your path. And so I was watching for it. I saw it. I got eyes on it. It popped up on AIS before I even saw it. And then when it got close enough on AAS, it showed that it was an Australian warship. It was cool. Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much for the donation. Appreciate it. Sarah, will you collect these New Zealand anchorages that people are posting in a Word document for me? How old am I, and when is my birthday? I'll be 48 April 11th. Coming up on 48, pushing 50. What else? What else? Someone said, do I describe to windy or predict wind? I have an Iridium Go, so I use predict wind. I use their top data plan. I actually just downgraded the data plan to the medium one, so I still have all of my tracker options, but I'm not paying $140 a month when I don't need to while I'm in New Zealand. Thank you so much for the donation. Appreciate it. Let me see here. So someone just asked, do I ever have days on passage where I wish I could hit a pause button and not sail for a day or two? No, because that definitely happened. That happens. And when you're becalmed, it is way worse. It is way worse when you're just sitting with no wind. That is like big winds and rough seas. You just like kind of batten everything down and go with it. At least you're moving. But it's the calms that are like soul crushing. So no, I don't ever feel that way. But I love sailing. So you'll get antsy coming in. I had a hard time this time because there were so many calms, and I kept getting becalmed right before a front would come. So I was sitting out, I don't know, 150 miles from New Zealand, going 1 knot, and I knew that there was this terrifying, massive system coming in, and I was just like a sitting duck. And like when I sailed into the Bay of Islands, it was like 4 a.m. I didn't even see land until I was within 3 miles because that's how thick the weather was. And I was racing this system trying to get in with no engine. I couldn't start the engine and motor in. So I'm just like coming into the Bay of Islands, 4 a.m. I had the third reef in the mainsail. I had like this much of the headsail out, and I was going between 5 and 6 knots. And it was just like full throttle. So crazy. What else? This is a question people ask a lot, but it's not in the question thing, but I'll answer it anyway. How do you get any sleep when you've traveled in the middle of the night and it's scary sailing at night? There's not, once you've done even one ocean passage, if you're sailing in the correct ocean, like at the correct time of year in an ocean, it's not, it's just, it's fine. It's like, there's just squalls. So if you're sailing in the wrong season, if you're sailing in the Bering Sea in the winter, or you're sailing, in the Pacific in cyclone season or the Atlantic in hurricane season, then that's a different story. But if you're sailing in the correct time of year, it's fine. It's like squalls. Some squalls get up to 40 knots. You just shorten sail and lay down. Sometimes it's not that it's scary, but it's too noisy to sleep. So you just lay there and listen to the boat. But for the most part, once you've been out there doing it, it takes a lot to sort of scare you. Let's see here. I'm going to check the questions box because we're trying to do that. Be responsible here. Um, okay, I like this question. Somebody asked, which I'm not going to really address it, about my tattoos. I am going to be, while I'm here in New Zealand, I promise, I will make an episode about my tattoos. And it's going to be about the history of tattooing and how it relates to sailors, and also the history of body modification as a whole, as well as the history of tattooing as a whole throughout history. I've been working on it for a while. I worked on it in Hawaii, but I've been talking to a couple of tattooers in Auckland. So when I'm in Auckland and getting tattooed, I'll probably film some of that, and then I'll spin that into an episode talking about my tattoos, body modification, and the history of it, and how it relates to sailing, sailors, and even especially in French Polynesia, the word tattoo comes from Polynesian language. So yeah, I have a lot to say about the subject, and a lot of people have asked me about it, and I will for sure be making that. So the question says, you do so much, put out so much content. What is your work routine like? When do you write, etc.? Are you doing all your video editing? When do you write? I do all of my video editing. I do all my filming. I only film on a GoPro Hero 9, and my drone is kind of busted and doesn't really work right now. But I have a old Mavic Pro that it is really sad that I couldn't even use for half the season. But GoPro Hero 9, I have 2 of those. That's all I film with. And I edit everything on a MacBook Air with Final Cut Pro. And basically, it's like I tend to get up really early and I edit in the mornings, and kind of just I'll do like a rough cut. So I'll go through all the footage, do a rough cut, and then I'll let it sit usually for a day, and then I'll come back the next day, and I may do 3 rough cuts in a row of episodes. And then I'll come back the next day and tune it up, put in titles, put in music, and button it up. So that's my work for the regular episodes. For the passage films that are an hour long, it's a much longer process. It'll take me 2 weeks to edit those because you just kind of get numb to them. So I don't want it. I want them to be as best as I can make them. So I'll edit them until I'm just like, I can't see this anymore. And then I'll come back and just basically I'll edit everything. And then I call it trim the fat. And I'll just go back through and kind of watch the flow and then pull stuff out that doesn't make sense. And then once you put in music, it kind of dictates the film. So that's my workflow with that. And it's funny you asked about the writing versus the video editing. I can't, for some reason, my brain can't be in both modes. Like I'm either in video editing mode or I'm in writing mode. I cannot video edit in the morning and write in the afternoon. I can't. So I'll like hammer out a bunch of videos and then I'll write. But the one benefit, especially on Passage in this whole season, is I've been writing extensively on the blog, the tracker blog. And what that is I'm basically writing the circumnavigation book in real time. So when I finally get back to LA on this first circumnavigation, I'll have most of the book written. And then I'll just what I do is I write them in Word first and save them dated in a folder. And then I post them to the tracker blog. So I already have them all in separate files on an external hard drive, ready to go. And then I'll go back and I'll just kind of piece everything together into a sort of cohesive story that is hopefully funny and inspiring. That's kind of all I want to do, is make people laugh and also like make people stoked. That's my goal as far as like the content creation goes and sharing all the gorgeous stuff I see. But it is a ton of work, a ton of work. And yeah, I think right now I have everything edited up to American Samoa. So I still have to edit all of the Fiji footage and then the Passage film to here. And luckily, I'm kind of on like a moratorium where I'm not filming right now. I'm just like living my life, which I really need. I've been filming little bits of this engine business because it makes sense with my grand scope of my story. But I'm trying to just like take some time to live because it can get very exhausting. So hope that answered the question. Someone said Merry Christmas from Melbourne. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to all of y'all. It's coming up. Better be good. Santa Claus is watching right now. He's probably on this live stream, so watch your P's and your Q's. People keep asking about the stars. The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. The stars at night at sea are out of this world, especially when there's no moon. On a new moon, and on this passage, there was like, usually the trade winds have so many clouds, it's like a conveyor belt of clouds. They all look the exact same and they just kind of cruise. But this passage, there were so many calms for all of us, all the cruisers I made friends with. Like my friends Ian and Laura, they ran out of fuel because they motored so much. Like right here, they ran out and had to get towed in at the last bit. But in the calms, it was bonkers. Like the way it looks it looks like a sculpture. It's so well defined in the sky. It is just stunningly beautiful. So crazy. People always ask if I see UFOs. I for sure believe there's other stuff out there. So like, it's not that I'm a non-believer. I just have not seen any. Seen lots of satellites. Someone said Texas stars ain't got nothing to stars in the ocean. I don't know. Me and Sarah visited Marfa. I mean, I grew up in Hobbs, New Mexico, and we had fantastic stars. But we visited Marfa I don't know what year it was, 2012. And we went out and saw the Marfa lights, which is a very strange phenomenon, really cool. But the stars that night were just as intense as they are at sea. Let's see here. I'm going to check my questions folder here. This is a good question. People probably wonder about. Says, what do you do on becalmed days? You read. I'll edit a lot. Like for sure on this passage, that's pretty much what I did. Is I just I edited the American Samoa passage film. For like, I had to stop myself because I was editing 12 hours a day because it was so calm. And I was like, I got to put this thing away. Edit, I read a ton, make food. I made scones a couple times. It's so chill. I made bread. It was American Thanksgiving when I was becalmed on this last passage. So I made like a nice big spread, like a plant-based, like chicken patty, fresh mashed potatoes, green beans, and I made fresh bread, and it was delicious. And I sat in the cockpit and ate. Fantastic. Someone asked, do I have a sextant? Yes, I have a sextant, and I know how to do celestial, but I do not mess with it unless I need to. Someone asked, am I scared of swimming in the middle of the ocean? No, I'm not. And I swam out away from the boat with no tether, and it was fantastic. I was asking my friends Ian and Laura last night at dinner if when they crossed the doldrums near the Galapagos, I was like, oh, did you guys swim? And they both looked bummed. They're like, no, we should have. We really disappointed that we didn't now. But yeah, Oh, actually, bringing them up. I've started and anyone that follows me on Instagram saw me post this today. I've started a new series that's going to be coming out next year called Conversations with Cruisers, where I'm just sitting down, podcast style, asking other cruisers questions. And it'll be on a variety of boats, a variety of different people with different backgrounds, um, and just asking them about their lives as cruisers. And I'm going to wait until I have like 6 done before I release any of them. And it'll be released as a video here on YouTube as a bonus episode. And it'll be released in podcast format just as an audio file if you want to listen to it driving to work or whenever you listen to podcasts. And I'm not going to ever sort of like, I have a big enough workload. I'm not ever going to promote the podcast or try to grow it. It's just going to be sort of like a document. And I realized this because I met some really interesting people early on in French Polynesia that I wish that I had incredible conversation with them. And I was like, damn, I wish I had been recording this. So then I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. I'm like crawling around the world, meeting very interesting people. I always say you got to go to wild places to meet wild people. I was like, this is an opportunity for me to document people's stories that wouldn't otherwise not be documented because there are so many regular folks cruising that don't have an online presence, and they have incredible stories to tell. So, and they're usually pretty shy, and like most people that don't, aren't active on social media or on YouTube, they're usually pretty shy. But we just sit down and have a conversation, and they've come out pretty, and they're over an hour usually. So they're just going to be long format. And I think that it'll be really beneficial to people that want to go cruising, or they have like, to hear other people's accounts of how they did it, or, you know, what it's like, or, because I'll ask like, what was like the worst thing? What's the best thing? Name some of your favorite spots. So just a very casual thing, but I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys. It's pretty cool. Someone asked, how much trash do I encounter? Trash in the ocean is the biggest problem with trash in the ocean is microplastics, and you don't see them. But that's what ends up animals ingesting. So I saw more trash, big trash in the Atlantic than I ever have in the Pacific. But the ocean is full of microplastics. So, and that's all I'm going to say about that. It's not a matter of, I didn't see a fridge floating out there, so there must not be any trash. There's tons of trash in the ocean, and it's a known fact. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that subject. How's the food in New Zealand? Oh, I'm actually glad you asked that. There's a place here that is a takeaway fish and chips place that is close your eyes, eat the whole thing until it's dangerous. So good. But I posted yesterday on Instagram a picture of me pulling the engine and then a picture of my fish and chips. I was like, I'm celebrating by eating fish and chips. All these people busted my balls. They're like, oh, you're becoming a local. I'm like, they call it fish and chips in America also. It's like so many people are like busting my balls about it. And I'm like, that is the weirdest thing. We also have spaghetti and sushi in America. So that was funny. But the fish here, the snapper, I think is the one I get. It's like $12 kiwi. Oh, so good. Fantastic. And then there's a little marina cafe here that's very expensive, but the food is good, but it's a little too expensive for me. Oh, wow. Thanks so much. I just saw a donation. That is bonkers. Thank you. I don't even know who posted that. Thank you, RM. Fantastic. I really appreciate that. What else? What else? Let me see. I better check my little questions thing over here. Everybody doing okay? We got 345 people online. Are y'all bored yet? Let me see here. It's like not kicking over to my thing for some reason. Someone's trying to post porno, so I gotta block them. Give me a second. Oh, Kate asked a question. Kate asks, as a captain, if you had someone doing night watches and you needed sleep, what would you want that night watch crew to wake you up for? Now, Kate asked this because she's about to go sail her first big wild ocean stuff with the captain that taught me how to sail Celia Bull on SY Selkie, based out of Scotland. They're sailing to Norway, like for all women crew, and a winter trip to Norway, which is super tough. So to answer your question, Kate, I would say it's like one thing I would say is like if you see ship's lights, first of all, as a captain, even if I need sleep, I would want to know if a ship, even if I got up and was like, keep your eyes on it and wake me up if it gets closer or something, or you check AIS. If you saw any lights, that's when I would want to get up. I would want to be woken up. If you saw, if the boat felt, unsafe to you, even if you're not experienced, even if you're new to sailing, if it feels wrong, if you think, I wonder if I should ask that question, ask the question, because the captain would rather be like, that's fine, or yes, we need to deal with that, than you not ask the question and something get broke or the boat go crazy. It's much worse to wake up with the boat sideways than to wake up with someone being like, I just want to know your opinion about this situation. Like, that's fine. So that's what I would say about that. Oh, hi, Samantha. Hi to you and Kevin. Let's see here. Let's see here. What else? Someone said, "What do you spend a year in fees and clearing in costs?" I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I mentioned earlier I'm gonna be doing Zoom classes, and I'm gonna break down all the financials if you take the Zoom class. I think the most expensive place, I think I spent $275 in Fiji. In French Polynesia, but that was to get Tahiti crew, and they covered my bond and everything. So that was probably the priciest. American Samoa was like $150, even though I'm an American citizen. And it was also the biggest nightmare to clear in. I had to deal with 12 officials. And then here in New Zealand, it was 2 officials. They were super nice. And I think it was like $17 to clear into New Zealand. I don't remember how much it was in Fiji. It wasn't much, but everything in Fiji was dirt cheap because it was like 43 cents US to $1 Fijian. So Fiji was very cheap for everything. Oh my gosh, Chuck, thank you so much. That is amazing. I have an interview with Uncle Chuck, and that I'm going to be sharing at some point. It's a matter of finding when I can work it in. He's the kapuna of fishing on the Big Island there, and a fascinating man. And I really appreciate the time that he spent with us and taught us how to make nets and stuff. What else? Let's see here. Someone said, what's the most delicious fruit you had on your tropical journey? Probably papaya, I would guess. Really good papaya in Fiji. And there was like, I went to this island called Makanai, and it looks like Makagi or something, but it's pronounced Makanai. It's in the former leper colony, and there was only 2 people that lived in the village at the time I went, and I presented sevu sevu to them, and then I sat with them for a while they were making brooms out of like palm fronds. And then I went and saw the former leper colony cemetery, which was out of this world. And I can't remember the cat's name, who was the husband. It was a husband and wife who lived there. But he came with his machete and got me some papaya, and I had that for breakfast like several mornings in a row. Oh, so good. That was a pretty special. That place too, Makanai. That's where they farm the giant clams for restoration in Fiji. So they have all these coral farms there, and it's like that whole island is now run by the fisheries department, and so I got to see how they grow coral. They grow the clams, and there was one big giant clam there, so that was cool. That was probably my favorite fruit that I had. Someone said, what would you upgrade Cape Dory 30 for ocean sailing? A hydrovane. The most significant gear on this boat since living LA, the two, and they're tied for first place, is my new sails from Rolly Tasker and my hydrovane. The new sails gave me 2 knots of speed. I could, and no weather helm. My old worn out baggy sails, I had such bad weather helm. None. I cruise between 5 and 6 knots without following seas. With following seas, I'll do like 7 and 8 kind of regular. But she flies now. She flies. It's crazy. And the hydrovane works in all conditions and all winds. As long as the winds are over 5 knots, the hydro works. And I found the hydrovane, even becalmed, if I have following seas, if I'm dead in the water, I set that blade straight into the following seas so that the weight can't be thrown around like that, and it'll hold me straight in so I don't get beam on, and it'll just like push you slowly with the seas. I was stoked when I discovered that. It made a big difference. Somebody asked, how do you have Wi-Fi on the boat for internet and being able to make money online while sailing in the middle of nowhere? Digital nomad and curious. All my Wi-Fi is like tethered to my phone. It's just, that's all I do. I edit a bunch of videos and I upload them and I schedule them on Patreon. And then when I'm on Passage, Sarah makes them live on YouTube. And so I just edit tons months ahead, because you'll get to places where you can't find any, or those cell signal isn't strong enough to upload. So for my life, all of my money comes from my YouTube channel. That's how I do it. I do all the work ahead of time, and when I have access, I just load up videos on the channel and get them ready to go. So that's how I go about it. I know like people talk about Starlink, and it's like getting to the point to where it makes sense, but I personally will never have Starlink because I think Elon Musk is a douchebag. So that's not for me. I ain't giving that dude any of my money. What else? What else? Someone says, what's the most important spare part to keep on your boat? Whichever one you don't have. Probably a bilge pump. I have 2 spare bilge pumps, and I've gone through many. They just, actually, I go through the floats always stop working on me. I'm replacing this setup with a big one with a built-in float, and I'm going to put up a smaller bilge pump that hangs down about halfway in the bilge, so that if the water gets high, there's 2 pumps going plus a manual bilge pump. Bilge pump and having a spare manual bilge pump, that's probably the most important. Like, keeping the water out is for sure the most important of everything. What else? 333 people. What else? Let's check our questions box to see if it's still happening over here. Someone asked if I'm going to see the America's Cup. I think the Sail GP is happening here. I don't know if the America's Cup is, but I know the Sail GP is happening. It just depends on where I'm cruising at. If I'm down near Auckland, then I'll pop over. I saw the America's Cup in San Francisco when it happened. It was pretty neat, but I'm not really like a watch sports kind of guy. Someone said, which place you like better, Hawaii or French Polynesia? French Polynesia for sure. Let's see here. This is a good question, actually. That's relevant for anyone interested. How big of a pain dealing with money while traveling to different countries? For the most part, it's pretty easy because you just take your bank card and you go to an ATM and you pull out cash. That being said, the magnetic strip on my card is jacked because it's worn out. And I didn't get one like an idiot before I left Hawaii. So, like when I was in French Polynesia, I couldn't pull money out of any ATM because they didn't have chips. They only had the magnetic thing. So I was having to have Western Union to me, and I would pull that out and just use cash. But since then, it's been very easy. Like especially here in New Zealand, everything has the pay wave or whatever. So you can just like do that, and it's not difficult. But I also made sure that I got $100 New Zealand currency when I left Fiji from like a currency exchange to make sure that when I showed up, I had cash, so that if there wasn't a way for me to pull cash out right away, at least I had something. But it hasn't been that difficult. Someone asked, why do you think the old sails cause more weather helm? Old sails always cause weather helm because of their shape, because they get baggy. They always, that's the biggest cause of weather helm is old stretched out sails. Someone asked if I speak any other languages. Nope, I don't. I found the key to my success. I mean, I've traveled before I started sailing and doing this. I had traveled to, I think, 22 different countries, and I barely speak English. So I've never run into a problem. Even I spent a month in Russia, never had a problem. There's ways to deal with it. So, but I found something beneficial that I did this season all through Polynesia was I would learn whatever the local language words for thank you, good morning, and goodbye or whatever. Like maruru is like thank you in Tahitian. Nana is like goodbye or whatever. So, and especially in French Polynesia, I would always address the locals, especially Polynesians, in their native tongue and not in French. And I found that it changed the experience greatly. It's just a sign of respect. And it goes a long way. I always say respect is a currency. So I found that to be very, beneficial. And I didn't have any problems. People spoke very, other than like in Rangiroa, like in the Tuamotus, like people had a hard time. But we managed for sure. Everybody was so nice. Everywhere I went, every country I went to, everyone was so nice. What else? People are asking about whales. I saw some beautiful whales when I was leaving. Actually, in 2 weeks, you'll see it on YouTube. Leaving Huahine, sailing to Raiatea. It's like 20-mile passage, like 4-hour passage. And I actually had some hitchhikers on board. A young French couple approached me on the dinghy dock and asked if they could get a lift to Raiatea since it was only like a short hop. I was like, oh, sure. And it was dead calm. It was a motor sail. But it was pretty fantastic because we were standing on the bow watching the spinner. We had seen the whales breaching, so we were trying to get to them. By the time we got to them, they stopped breaching, but there were spinner dolphins everywhere, and we're watching the spinner dolphins, and the water was like glass. And we looked down, and like 70 feet below the water, you can see the whales swimming under Triteia and coming up, and then they surfaced and right there, and you could hear them. It was fantastic. But in the open ocean, I saw nothing. I saw nothing. I saw lots of jellyfish on the sail down here, but and I saw dolphins as I was approaching New Zealand, but I didn't see any. I saw a lot of birds, but that was it. What else? How are we doing? 298 people still on, so you guys aren't bored yet? Someone said, how many times has my boat been attacked by a great white? None. 0 times. And I've had them swim up and check me out. Sharks are fine. They are fine. What else? Let me check the live chat. It's hard going back and forth with this thing. It's a little confusing. Someone said, do you feel like you're moving country to country too fast? I mentioned this earlier, but everyone travels at the same pace through the South Pacific because of cyclone season. You don't, there's not an option. You have a window of this to get through what you can. Some people leave their boats in Triteia, like if they want to spend 2 seasons in French Polynesia, but then you risk it getting hit by a cyclone and losing your boat. Some people leave them in Fiji. Fiji, they do this crazy thing at Vunde, I think is the name of the marina. They dig holes in the ground and they put your boat in the ground. So it's sitting in like a grave. But still, cyclones hit Fiji real bad and have done a lot of damage. So you risk losing your boat. Most people sail down to New Zealand. A lot of people leave their boats here, travel back home, whether they're working or if they're retired just to see family and stuff. They'll come back, and a lot of cruisers are heading back to Fiji next season. And they'll do Fiji and then Vanuatu, Nukau, and then go from there. But so I traveled at the exact same pace that everyone else travels at because you're racing the weather. There's not, you don't really have an option. What else? Someone asked how many years I've been sailing. I started sailing in 2014. And I currently have just shy of 15,000 sea miles behind me. I have 8,636 solo sea miles currently. Somebody just asked if I carry a drug or a sea anchor on board. Yeah, I do, for sure. Somebody else said, what are you reading now? I'm reading, I just bought a bunch of books. I think I bought like 6 books since I got here. I found a good bookstore in a couple towns over. I'm reading A Brief History of New Zealand. So I'd already read everything I could find on the history of New Zealand. So I know a lot about when the original settlements happened of the Polynesians and the Maori people. I know a ton about all that, and everything there is to know about Cook, and I've been reading about Abel Tasman. I've been reading a lot about Australia too, and about when the Dutch stumbled upon Australia. So I've been reading a lot about that. Thank you, Samantha. Oh my gosh, you guys are wild. But right now I'm reading A Brief History of New Zealand, because I just like to know everything I can possibly know about a place, because I find that it really enriches the experience. And like, I want to know who are in these spots. You know what I mean? I want to know that the Maori were like fishing in these zones, like back when they first, because the Maori people have only been here between 800 and 1200 years. So they have not been here long. So you know, and especially like Captain James Cook is like one of my great heroes. I think he was very important. And it's very exciting for me to get to anchor in the spots where he was and where, you know, they were, because that was like those cats were out to just like see things for science, which is like beautiful to me. So that's what I'm reading right now currently. And then get this other, I got a bunch of bird books, New Zealand bird books. And I'd got Miles Smeaton, Because the Horn Was There. I just started reading that, but now I'm just trying to focus on learning as much as I can about New Zealand. What else? Someone asked if I'm coming to Australia. Yes, I will be sailing to Sydney next May and then working my way up the East Coast inside the Great Barrier Reef to the Torres Straits to Darwin before I depart New Zealand. Someone asked which countries were the easiest to check in and which were the hardest. American Samoa was the biggest pain in the ass ever. It was terrible. French Polynesia was very easy, but it may have been because I had an agent. But kind of, it's the same thing everywhere. New Zealand was really easy. Fiji, I think I dealt with 4 officials. Everybody was sweet. They came out to Triteia on a dinghy from the marina. They were all very chill. Like, everybody was so nice. It's just a lot of paperwork. You fill out all the paperwork ahead of time online and you email it to them. And if you have the ability to, you should print them out then, because then you could just hand it to them when they show up, because they make you fill out the exact same paperwork when you arrive that you already sent them. Just how it is. And when you leave, you fill out the exact same paperwork. And they're always like, oh no, that's for clearing out though. But it's the same forms. So if you're smart, you'll just like get copies. I have a printer, but my ink ran out. But it was not difficult. Like, everything's online. The key is to like do everything they ask you to do. You email them ahead of time. You send them what forms they want. Like, I applied for my longer stay visa with New Zealand ahead of time, and it took them a month and a half to approve it, but I was approved before I left. But even that, like, I would have gotten a 3-month visa just for showing up, having a US passport. But I have like a 9-month visa as it is, because that's what I applied for and was approved for New Zealand. So it was pretty easy everywhere except American Samoa. That place is a nightmare. And it was also the worst place I visited the whole season. I will never return there. The Samoan people I met were fantastic. I met Jed. He was really sweet. He took me to their village, and I met their chief, which is his older sister. And he explained so much about the culture. I had dinner with them, like their Sunday dinner. I can't remember the Samoan word for it. All the people I met were fantastic. The officials were a nightmare, and the anchorage was terrible. Really bad holding. I drug probably 200 meters when the winds got up. And you're not allowed to anchor anywhere else. There's all this good anchoring on the north side of the island that's protected. And I asked one of the officials, I was like, how can I go see about anchoring? I'd love to pop around some other spots. He was like, oh no, you have to get an approval from this department, and I promise you they're never going to approve you to go anywhere. So you're only allowed one spot to go, and it's really, really bad holding. Yeah, not going back there. I wish I'd gone to Western Samoa, or Independent Samoa is what it's called now. It's not called Western Samoa anymore. What else? Someone keeps asking about how much insurance do I carry around these countries. I just have like Progressive, and you don't need insurance for your boat except for going to marinas. In New Zealand, I have to find $5 million coverage Kiwi dollars, which I can't find to stay in marinas. So I don't know that I'll get to stay in any more marinas in New Zealand. unless I figure it out. But you don't have to have you have to have health insurance to go to countries, but you don't need boat insurance unless you're going to a marina. Someone said, funny question, when you're out there on your own, the camera's off, and you ever find yourself talking to yourself or singing with the lack of being other people? um, no, I may. I don't. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But it leads into an interesting subject, which I've talked about in the past. You experience aural hallucinations. Um, so, and it's fun. I was talking about this with some other. I was talking about this with Holly Martin and my friend Keith about what we hear, and we were all talking to him. We all kind of hear the same things. So, especially when you're solo. But Keith did the passage with his older son, and his older son kept asking him, "Do you have the radio on?" Because it'll sound like a distant radio, like an AM radio. It's that kind of that quality. You'll hear this hallucination, where you'll hear music that doesn't exist. Um, it'll also sound like you're in a crowded restaurant where you can't make out the conversation, but you can hear lots of talking in all directions. Um, but usually it sounds like music on a radio that's through a wall. That's the most common hallucination I have. Heidi said she had an experience where she could hear her sister breathing in the bunk next to her, even though her sister wasn't on board. But she was like, I could hear her breathing, but I knew I was alone. She was like, I just laid there in the peace of it, thinking about her being there. But so that's an interesting thing that happens. And it's a known thing that happens. It's always happened for centuries. What else? Somebody asked if I get stir crazy at times, depending on where you are. The only time I kind of get stir crazy is like when you're a day from landing after a long passage. So like the passage from Fiji to New Zealand was only just over 1,100 miles. It should have taken me 11 days. I think it took me 15 days. So that's pretty frustrating because it was so calm. There was so little wind. That can get frustrating. So then it's like, oh, I just want to get in. But like the passage to American Samoa, it was a great passage. I mean, I had some wild stuff happen, but it was a great passage, and I wasn't antsy then. Or to Fiji. I was a little anxious at Fiji because that's when my engine started acting up, was like approaching the reefs at Fiji. I had no engine. So that was like a different sort of thing. But and if you see Sarah Satya answering questions, she speaks for me. She's like works on my shore team, and she's posting links and stuff for me. So if she's answering, you can consider that to be gospel. Someone said, can you describe the smell of land after a long passage? That's a funny thing, is it depends. In the trade wind sailing, a lot of times you won't smell the land because you're upwind of it. But I've had that experience before. The most intense experience I had of that this season was approaching Tahiti. I could smell, it smelled like a bakery because it was the vanilla from the orchards. And it was so intense. It smelled just like I was inside a bakery. It was bonkers. So crazy. Someone keeps asking, I'm heading to Nelson. I don't know where Nelson is, so I'm not sure. Let's see here. Someone said Edward William Marine Insurance. I'll have to see if they cover US. Sarah, will you take down that info in the chat for me, please? I contacted 4 different places and haven't been successful. So how are we doing? 320 people still here. We're 2 hours in. Oh, that's another crazy thing I just found out yesterday, which is what I'm doing after we get off of here. Opua is like a big, like the main port of entry. Like most cruisers come here because it's the closest port of entry. So a lot of people come here from Fiji, from Tonga, wherever. Tons of boats at moorings, tons of boats at anchor. you can't buy gasoline for your dinghy. Closest place you can get is like the next town down, which is like 7 miles away. I went to try to get gas for my dinghy yesterday and was like, you can buy diesel, but you can't buy gas. So my buddy Keith has his car here and he's been letting a bunch of us like use it to run around. I had to drive to town, one of the towns the other day, to buy lumber and stuff so I could build a little gantry to get my engine out. And I wish I'd known then, but I have his car keys. Thank you, Keith. So I can go after we get off here, and I got to go get fuel because I'm moving Triteia with the dinghy on the hip out to the anchorage tomorrow morning. And Ian and Laura are going to kind of like be my wingmen. They're going to just like spot me with their dinghy to make sure that I'm doing it at slack tide because there's like a pretty gnarly current. Like it runs up to 1 knot current in here, like in this little zone. But it should be pretty calm wind wise, and with at slack tide, it should be fine. But I was shocked that they don't have. Somebody could make a lot of money if you install a gas pump over here. It's probably a pain though, environmental causes and stuff. What else? Hello from LA. I love LA. Very sad news about P22, the mountain lion, got put down. I mean, he was at the end of his life and they said he got struck by a car, so it was a humane thing to do, but I always love seeing updates about P22. I lived in LA for 19 years before this last time. I lived there several times, but this most recent time, LA. What else? Someone asked, any plans for electric dinghy motor? No, I have no interest in any electric motor on any boat ever. What else? Let me see. Maybe I should check my questions box over here. You guys are so nice for just hanging out. I haven't done a live since Kona. I don't even remember what I talked about then. Let me see here. Somebody asked, okay, this is probably something people question. How much experience did I have before I left California? Before I left California, I had 5,000 nautical miles behind me, and I was a licensed. I held a master's license with the U.S. Coast Guard, so I had a lot of experience before I left California. I didn't have that much solo experience. I had a lot of solo experience around Southern California, but all of my solo ocean crossing experience has taken place since last August. What else? Somebody said, will you get a water maker installed at some point? Yeah, I would love to. I might be getting a water maker at the beginning of the year. I think I've talked about this in the past. When I was in Hawaii, these engineers from MIT reached out to me, and they invented a new type of water maker that has no high pressure pump, no membrane, nothing. And it draws like 3 amps, and it applies an electrical current to desalinate the water. And we did like, I don't know, a 2-hour Zoom interview. And I was telling them, this is what I would look for. This is what cruisers want. And I talked about ideas and stuff. And so they have me at the top of the list for installing a beta test. They just have to get the models to that point. And then I put them in touch with a couple other cruisers. So that might happen. But unless I got a water maker sponsor, I don't have $5,000 to spend on a water maker, especially now knowing what I know, that getting water is not difficult. So I think it'd be a little trickier if I wasn't solo, because I have 35 gallons in my belly tank, which I think, I don't know how many liters that is. I can't remember how many liters, but I have 35 gallons in my belly tank, and then I carry like 15 gallons in jerry cans. That's my backup safety. And I wash all my dishes at sea in salt water. I rinse everything in salt water when I'm at sea. I allow myself to bathe and wash my hair every Sunday on a minimal, just like bathe, and that's it. If it's raining, if there's a lot of rainstorms, then I'll go out and shower in the rain so that I can do it more times than once a week. But so you learn to be very frugal with your water supply when you're on passage making. But water maker is not necessary. It's a nice luxury, but it's not necessary. And I really wouldn't, they're a huge pain in the ass, except for this new kind that they invented. If this thing works out, and it's cool because when I was talking to those cats, they were like, they're going to develop them for sale to be under $2,000. And they're developing it for the yachting market. But also they said, we want to make them commercially available for the yachting industry. That way we can then use them to get into like third world countries to get fresh water to people. He was like, but we need to make money this way so that we can give them away to these people this way. He said the only problem that they had so far in competition with other water makers is they hadn't figured out how to do high output yet. So the outputs they were getting are around what the Survivor 40 is, which is the kind that I would install anyway. It's like 6 gallons an hour or something. So if you have like a family on board, then I could understand needing a water maker. But for a solo sailor, not necessary. Someone asked, how long did it take for me to get tatted up? I've been getting tattooed since I was 15 years old. Craziest encounter during your passages this year? Encounter? I don't know. This brings me to another thing. He says, craziest is the question. I was reviewing some footage of maybe the American Samoa thing. And I'm sitting there talking, and I'm like, oh, it's been like really, really like lovely passage. And the sea in the background is just chaos, absolute mayhem. And it was hilarious to see, like, from a different perspective, because your sort of perception of what is comfortable and what is dangerous or what is scary changes dramatically with the more ocean sailing experience you have. So it's a hard question to answer, right? It's like, it was very funny though, because I was just like, and I'm even holding on. It's like, I'm like, oh, and literally, I wasn't like bullshitting. I was like, it's very nice. That's just ocean sailing. And once you get used to realizing that that's just ocean sailing, then it's not scary or weird. You're like, oh, I'm just sailing in the ocean on a small boat. But it is very funny because it changes, Somebody asked, how much gasoline do you usually carry on board for the dinghy? I find that I carry one of the little 3-gallon ones that can plug into the dinghy, and then a 2-gallon that I'll top up the internal tank. And even with that, so 5 gallons, right, is what I normally have. Even with that, I find it hard to burn through that fuel before it kicks off, because the fuel will separate and kick off and be no good. So it's really difficult. I'll have to run it down really low and go on silly like mangrove adventures to try to burn fuel, because I find usually the distances of where I'm traveling with it just like aren't enough to burn through all even 5 gallons. Judy asked, have I been in any bad storms? That kind of falls back to like what I was just talking about your perception of things. The worst storm I was in the whole season was the morning I came in here, but I missed the worst of it. But I think the highest winds I saw in the passage to New Zealand was 40 knots. And the boat, even reefed way down, was so far over that I had to reach into the raging sea to undo the jib sheet to bring the headsail almost completely in with the mainsail reefed to the third reef. And we were still bearing the rails flying, doing like 6 and 7 knots with like, and that was pretty mean. Like 40 knots is a bummer in a small boat. Not fun. So Gordon said Nelson is the top of the South Island. Be a nice place. I plan on visiting Marlborough Sounds, so I'm sure I'll stop into Nelson. I just haven't researched that area too extensively yet because I need to make sure I can safely get down there as far as with my engine goes. Someone asked if I free dive in my free time on the islands. Yeah, I free dive. I'm not very good at free diving. I can only get down to maybe 20 feet. I'm not a fan of drowning. Some people are really good at it, but I practiced and I got much better this season than I was before, but not something that I'm really strong at doing. But I swam so much. I was in the water constantly this whole, and that's another reason I didn't get tattooed at all because I was always swimming. So that's why I'll be getting tattooed here in New Zealand in Auckland, because I'm not going to be swimming as much. Somebody just asked about my shirt. I got the shirt in Fiji. That's Savu Savu, which is funny. It looks like it's Savu Savu, but it's pronounced. It looks like Suva Suva, but it's pronounced Savu Savu, not to be confused with Sevu Sevu, which is the stuff you give for kava. What else? How are we doing? We still got a lot of people in here. What else? Let me check my questions field over here. See what's happening. Okay, let me get back to the live chat. All right, I think I'm going to button it up. We're at 2 hours. That is crazy. Crazy. Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for all your donations. Fantastic. Really appreciate it. That's going to go to the massive engine rebuild fund. I was hoping to like try to install an electric windlass while I was here. That's one of the only things I hauled up by hand the whole season, which is fine. But my concern is that if I get injured, I'm kind of hosed being solo. That's always the risk. So I wanted to install electric windlass while I was in New Zealand, but with the engine thing, I don't think I can afford it, but we'll see. So yeah, I think I'll sign off. I gotta go get fuel for my dinghy so I can move tomorrow. Thanks everybody for watching YouTube channels, the videos. I really appreciate it. Thanks to my patrons. I love you guys. And I really appreciate all the support. And thanks for everybody for tuning in and visiting with me. It's really nice to chat with y'all and answer some of your questions. And I'm going to be, like I said, I'm going to be doing some Zoom classes. So there'll be like an ad on the YouTube channel that kind of talks about that. I got to get my ducks in a row on that. And good old boat, January, February issue. I have an article about how I got into sailing and when I found Triteia. Lots of photos, funny photos, and stoked on that. I have an article in the Flying Fish publication. Triteia is on the cover, which is awesome. And you can download that for free as a PDF on the Ocean Cruising Club website. only the members can get the printed edition, but they make it available as a free PDF. There's some other legendary writers that wrote in this new issue, so I'm proud to be in that with them. And yeah, I think that's it. That wraps it up. And thanks again to everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks for your very generous donations. So nice of you. And I'm going to tune out. I'm very happy to be in New Zealand. All the Kiwis I've met have been super nice, and I am very grateful I get to stay in your beautiful country for a short while. And that's it. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.